you're coming from.
Yeah, my name's Fred Mallory. I'm born and raised Eugenian. I've lived here all my life. And retired EWEB. I spoke with you nationwide and for the energy picture, the global warming and whatnot. I would, again, like to see us focus more, instead of on the green technologies like solar and wind, which are great in their time, but start with conservation. Start plugging up the leaks in our small businesses, if you will, and you know, boosting them along, creating jobs and doing conservation work. So what, Jeff, what have you done around that issue? Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for asking. Back in when I first went to the Senate, I put together plans for something that I titled Rural Energy Savings Program. Mm-hmm. And the idea was very low-cost loans that would go to our public utilities that they could then lend out on bill for energy-saving retrofits. And the idea was that energy conservation can be done house by house, building by building, commercial structure by commercial structure. And as I had this bill and was lobbying for it, former President Clinton came in to speak to our caucus. And he said, and I won't try to imitate his accent, so. Always envious of my colleagues who can do that. But he comes in and he says, you know, the single most effective thing that we can do is to have low-cost loans for energy-saving retrofits. And as he starts talking about it, he makes all the arguments that I would make. You know, these materials are all made in the United States of America. Virtually 100% are made in the United States of America. These are not jobs that can go overseas. This can create jobs in every single community, rural communities, urban communities. And the whole time I'm going, okay, now mention, and the new senator from Oregon has the bill we need to pass. But you never quite made it to. But I did get that legislation adopted, and I did get that legislation now funded. The program opened up last year, so it's a new program. It's going to take some time to get people educated, get signed up for it, be able to offer loans. But it is the idea that an individual might look at their single-pane aluminum windows and go, I just can't afford to buy these double-pane windows, vinyl windows to replace it. Yeah. But if they could get a very low-cost loan and basically pay for it with the savings in energy that would come out of their house, now they can do it. And that means more goods are made in America and sold. It means construction jobs, and it's a win-win all the way around. So that's the conservation side.
Thank you, Jeff.
Well, that's not enough. And I want to go on to from that point and say, we can't just talk about climate disruption in terms of a little more energy conservation here, a little bit more gas mileage over there. We have to think in terms of the complete end to the burning of fossil fuels. I introduced two bills on this, one in November 2015, that was called Keep It in the Ground, and it's about what you and I own. Every one of us here is a fossil fuel baron. Did you know you were fossil? Did you know how much you own in gas and oil and coal? As a citizen, you own a tremendous amount. So now we're the stewards. We're the responsible for this. What are we going to do with it? And the Keep It in the Ground bill said we cannot continue to sell off the rights to extract and burn fossil fuels that we own as citizens. So there's no new leases of our citizen-owned fossil fuels on coal or on gas or on oil. And that's the phrase, keep it in the ground. And then this year, I introduced 100 by 50, 100% clean and renewable energy. And that's what the 100 refers to. And then the 50 was 2050. I had called up and talked to the president's top energy advisor and said, when he goes to Paris, please have him say in his speech, we must, as a planet, go to 100% clean and renewable energy, and we must make that transition by the year 2050. So it'll be a very clear goal, and it's exactly the goal that as human civilization we have to accomplish. And I didn't succeed. The president didn't give that speech. And, but since he didn't give that speech, I'm using my much tinier little bully pulpit to promote this vision of what we have to do. And so I put out a bill. It's a big bill. It's a thick bill. It's over 300 pages because I tried to go through every sector of the energy economy and say there is a roadmap to do this, even in the most difficult areas. Some of it requires a lot more R&D, a lot more work to figure out how we can amplify the role of biofuels in key places where electricity isn't going to get it done. But also we can do a lot with electricity. We can completely replace the fossil fuel electrons with clean and renewable electrons. And we can move a tremendous amount of our energy economy onto the electric sector as well. And so here's the thing. The federal government is not going to get this. My bill is not going to pass. It's not going to get a hearing in committee in the near term. So the president symbolized this by withdrawing from Paris. In a way, that is a powerful statement of inaction by the federal government, which just reinforces that we have to get the job done. We have to do it at every level, every city, every county, every business, every family. We have to own this at the grassroots level, and if we think about taking a 100% clean and renewable resolution, a pledge, and laying out a 2 to 3 year action plan, how we're going to make progress towards it, if we do that at every level, we will make far more impact than the federal government would ever have made. And we'll also create a foundation for electing national leaders who are going to fight for this vision.
Christy Murray with our Revolution Lane County. And I just want to say thank you for being in an inconvenient sequel, Truth to Power, Al Gore's movie. Thank you for being in there. And I know that you have spoken on keeping it in the ground. What specifically are you going to be doing to have no new pipelines in Oregon?
So the 100% bill does lay out in a section in which it basically says from this date forward, about 2022, there will be no new pipelines, basically fossil fuel infrastructure built in America. Because if you're saying that by 2050 we have to quit burning it, then these things have a lifeline or a lifetime cycle that could extend beyond 3 decades. So we've got to stop building them. So that is in the bill. And I should add a couple things. One is that particular point can be very upsetting to some of our construction labor world. And my response to that is, so I am there for building every other form of infrastructure. We need new gates on our riverways, we need docks, we need jetties, we need rural broadband getting to every community in America. We have highways and bikeways and light rail to be built. There's a lot we can build, and we have neglected our infrastructure enormously. So I'm there for all of that, but very soon we have to say no to building any new fossil fuel infrastructure.
Hi, my name is Bear, and I am increasingly worried about this, what I personally feel is an absurd, ridiculous wall. The ecosystems that will be affected by this wall, the migratory birds, I think it's about 400 go through a certain area where this wall is supposed to go. I just read about the ocelot, about 50 left, and that wall is going to go through their ecosystem. Animals and all creatures and flora, fauna, all of it is affected by this ridiculous notion. We're already up to our eyeballs fighting fracking and oil spills, and I don't know how much more I can take of it, but this buffoon and this ridiculous wall, it's going to send me over the edge. So I'm wondering if you can assuage my fears a little. Do you have any idea or feeling, is this wall really going to begin, and is it going to get built?
This is one area I feel somewhat optimistic about, because we had the fiscal year 2017 continuing resolution. And it was a chance for the president's team to push for funding for the wall, and on a bipartisan basis, we turned it down, and we didn't fund it. So I'm hoping that we can sustain that same bipartisan opposition. Now, let me tell you a little bit. I went down to the border to some urban areas and saw kind of in urban areas the immense security. They have fences, they have spotlights, they have infrared. So they really have, the United States has really cut the cross-border traffic in urban areas. And then the question, and fences might be very appropriate in that urban area to assist with that. But every time I hear the president's team talk about how we're going to stop drug trafficking by building this wall, so I met with the drug experts, our drug experts, the American drug experts, and we said, how do drugs come to the United States? And they said, they come in two ways. They come in through tunnels, and second, they come in through trucks. And we said, well, what about, like backpacks? And they're like, no. It doesn't happen. It's not the way it comes. So every time you hear the president talking about stopping drugs coming into the U.S. with a wall, it's completely ignorant point. And furthermore, you pointed out some of the challenges. Stopping illegal movements across the border. There's much more effective ways to do it that don't damage the ecosystem, that achieve the objective through surveillance, through, in some cases, they put up car fences so vehicles can't, and by that I mean kind of just wires that stop cars and alert people that vehicles are trying to move across. But there's much more effective ways than putting up an obstruction. I think about it, how the president's symbol for America is a wall. I like the symbol of the Statue of Liberty. And the president, it isn't just about walls between the United States and Mexico, it's between communities. It's like an attack on the African American community, an attack on the Hispanic community, attack on women, attack on Muslims. And during his campaign, the president said to the LGBT community, he said, I will fight for you. And Hillary Clinton won't. That's how he campaigned, right? Well, what have we seen the last couple of weeks? But assaults on the LGBT community. And so wall after wall divisions in America. How about we do what we've done for generations and embrace the strength of our diversity? Why don't we virtually all... If one is not 100% Native American, you're the son or daughter of immigrants. And immigrants who fled economic desolation, who fled famines and droughts, and who fled religious persecution, who fled oppression. And I like those words on the carved into the base of Lady Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Let's keep that in our thoughts as we go forward.
Hi, I'm Deb McGee, and I organize with 350 Eugene. And I love your words, keep it in the ground. But by 2050, scientists tell us we'll be locked into a 4 to 6 degree temperature increase. We'll be in the middle of unstoppable climate catastrophe. If we stop burning fossil fuels today, the greenhouse gas temperature will increase for another 20 years. And here comes my question. Here in Oregon, we have a Keystone XL. We have the Jordan Cove Pacific Nectar pipeline, projected to export fracked gas for 30 years. It's a 235-mile pipeline. A foreign corporation will take over 300 Americans' land by eminent domain. 400 streams will be blown up so they can have a pipe laid through them. It'll endanger salmon, 32 endangered species, more fires in the mountains of Oregon. You have the bully pulpit. You represent us. Why do you refuse to oppose the Jordan Cove Pacific Connector LNG export terminal?
Many folks are concerned about that pipeline and that export. So this has been one of the most difficult issues I've wrestled with. because when it was proposed a decade ago, it was proposed in the context of there were about a dozen possible export locations on the West Coast. I said, listen, Coos Bay should have a chance to make their case that of those dozen, they're the best location, and that I was kind of neutral. I didn't advocate for it, I didn't oppose it. And at that time, we've learned a lot over that decade, which is why I say it's been a very difficult issue for me. We've learned a lot about fugitive methane. We've learned a lot, initially, it looked like that natural gas would replace coal and would actually reduce the global warming footprint at the time that I said I was neutral on the proposal. Now it's not clear, it's argued both ways. Will it replace coal or will it replace nuclear, which does not produce carbon dioxide. So that's now in question. I did, though, put a couple points on it. One was that it absolutely should not involve any use of eminent domain. I said that from the beginning, I've said it continuously. And that it should involve, they had a plan to use renewable energy to basically power the facility. Now, they're going to put forward a new proposal, I gather. They've been turned down several times. I hope that proposal they put forward says we will not use eminent domain and we will operate the facility completely with renewable energy. But I am, obviously, I have a lot of concern about what we've learned and the impact of this. But since I had said I'd be neutral, I'm trying to honor that premise while pointing out that the original points I made, it should, if it's built, it should be built within those contexts of renewable energy and no eminent domain. So I know that's not a very satisfactory answer.
We'll have a standing rock in Southern Oregon. We will have a standing rock in Southern Oregon. That will happen.
Thank you. Thank you for raising the issue.
First, thank you. I call you every day. Your staff is wonderful. I'm here as Slug Queen, if you're wondering about the getup. My name is Leanne Joshua. I live in Santa Clara, just north of Eugene. My concern is also as complicated of an issue for you, but I'm worried about the future of the Democratic Party. Many of us in this room are progressives, and I feel like you are one of the true progressives in the Democratic Party, and yet already we're seeing this decision being made at the top of the party to force us into someone else who is the chosen person of the people at the top. And as long as the people don't believe that their needs are being listened to, we look at this as a kleptocracy in both the DNC and the RNC. What can we do in the Democratic Party to make sure that it reflects our democratic values, is my question.
So while you still have the microphone, let me ask you a question. When you refer to being forced into accepting a person, what are you talking to?
I'm talking about being told that the DNC is putting their money behind a person at the top without any input from the people themselves.
You mean in terms of future presidents?
Presidents, yes. I totally believe that most of the power is grassroots and that we must do progressive actions from the bottom up. But when the people look at the top and see that their voices are not being listened to, it's very disheartening.
So I want to be, I don't want to spend too much time on kind of, this is not a gathering of the Democratic Party, this is a gathering of the citizens of Oregon. But I'll try to give a short answer to your position. I opposed having super delegates. I think that is a huge mistake for the I understand why the party has gone back and forth. It's had them, it's not had them, and I won't extend that discussion. I just feel that we have to emphasize grassroots leadership. And let me tell you how this made a difference on healthcare. I worked to have a meeting every 2 weeks with different mass groups. Groups like Our Revolution, like Move On, like Credo, Ultraviolet, have a conversation because I felt our only way to succeed in defeating Trump care was to have both an effective inside operation and a very effective outside operation, that the two had to understand what each other were doing because we worked at cross purposes. And just a huge thanks to these groups and groups like Indivisible, that proceeded. Our mailboxes overflowed, our phones were flooded, often our offices were filled. Beautiful demonstration of sustained grassroots effort, which is very, very hard to do. People have families, people have lives. So thank you, Grassroots America, for defeating Trump Care. In terms of the question you raised, I'm not sure what you heard. That I have heard it, so I'm going to have to investigate. But we need to make sure, I think, that we have a very honest, level playing field for everyone who decides to run for 2020.
Yes. Are you running? Are you going to run for president?
I don't think your ticket's been drawn.
The last question in the last ticket goes to 525.
I spent that in kindness, gentlest way. Over here, can we get a microphone?
Hi, thank you. I'm Alexandra Rumpel. I'm a professor at the University of Oregon in the Environmental Studies program. I also call you frequently. Thank you again, to echo many people here, for all of your efforts on our behalf. I'd also like to add my support to the statements about Jordan Cove without going any further into that. That is an important person. But the main thing I wanted to ask has to do with this energy transition question that you raised with your 100 by 50. And as a representative from 350.org said, we need to make this transition very rapidly. We need to be making enormous changes now. And we're stuck at this point where solar incentives are gradually sort of being eroded. Fossil fuels are very inexpensive compared to many other parts of the world. They're too inexpensive for us to be tapping into our own ingenuity, largely, to try to make these transitions. So what will your bill do to help support our grassroots efforts to make the transition rapidly and also to reach parts of the country that aren't really that concerned at this point?
Yes. So, in terms of reaching parts of the country that aren't that concerned, there's several ways to connect. And one of those is over solar and wind. For example, last year when Lamar Alexander of Tennessee wanted to wipe out the research funds for wind research, arguing it was a mature, mature technology. So I went to Senator Grassley of Iowa, and I said, hey, you've got a lot of wind in your state. He said, well, yes, we do. And that's really awesome for our state. We have, I think, the highest percentage of wind power in the nation. I said, well, maybe you would like to help me restore the research funds. And so we did an amendment on the floor, and we won. So it was a debate on the floor, we won that amendment. In fact, I was struck how there was a senator from North Dakota said, hey, he was talking about the wind power there. He was talking, hey, we have so much wind in North Dakota. We're the Saudi Arabia of wind power. And then there was a senator from Nevada, and Senator Harry Reid, he says, you know, we have so much solar in Nevada. We're the Saudi Arabia of solar power. And then we had a county commissioner from Douglas County who said, we have so much cellulose, so many trees growing, we could be the Saudi Arabia of cellulosic ethanol. And I thought, with all these Saudi Arabias, why are we importing oil from Saudi Arabia? And I do feel like we are on the verge of an incredible transformation. And we have some blessings that we have to recognize. The first blessing is the cost of solar energy has dropped enormously. In fact, so I was somebody mentioned that the Al Gore sequel, and I get like 6 words from the camera that's back over my shoulder, so you don't even know who it is. And, was it? Oh, was it? Oh, okay, well, all right. Anyway, I get part of one sentence. But when I was in a meeting talking about the relationship with India and why India had 300 million people who do not have any electric power, and that India wanted to provide them electric power, and was saying we can do 1/3 of them with solar and wind renewable. The other 2/3 we're going to have to use coal. And I was asking the question in that meeting, and then in a follow-up meeting with India, about what would it take to change that ratio or go to 100% renewable for that 300 million people. And they were saying it was the cost of financing, which Al Gore does address in his film, the cost of financing of renewable energy projects. And then I'm over in May in India. Mary and I, my wife Mary and I, went over with CARE to look at rural development projects. But I arranged a meeting with the power minister in India. So I'm sitting with him, he spends half an hour saying, why are you here to talk to me about climate? After all, you've been burning fossil fuels for 150 years in the United States of America. Look how you've prospered. You don't want us to prosper here in India?
Yep.
And he lectured me, and I was expecting this speech, so it is true. We have burned a lot of fossil fuels here in America, so I wasn't going to argue with the stats. And so I said, what you're saying, I think you've reflected pretty accurately what's happened. But let me ask you this question. How much is a new kilowatt of coal energy here in India? Answer, about 7 cents. How much is the cost of a new kilowatt of solar energy? Answer, 3 to 4 cents. I said, so listen, we can work together. Setting aside the past, what is best for India today? We can work together to try to facilitate using the best business option of solar energy. And that's before you take into account what's outside your window. Outside his window was air so thick with coal dust you couldn't see 200 yards. And the health impacts on India, enormous. And so he kind of grudgingly acknowledged, okay, let's shift what we're going to do. He said, but still we can't move fast enough on solar, so we still need to build all these plants. That was in May. In June, India announced that they are not building those new coal plants. And they also said, and by the way, we're planning to end the sale of diesel or fossil fuel powered cars by the year, I think it was 2040. 2040. And 2030. I think France was 2040, right? So Germany passed a resolution saying the same thing. I mean, countries are starting, this is the last couple months, countries are starting to say, we cannot do little things. We have to move fast. And so another blessing in addition to the low cost of solar power is the low cost of wind power, which these are becoming, they're dropping fast enough, they're becoming competitive without subsidies, even while the fossil fuel energy gets tons of subsidies. And so I said to the speech to Lamar Alexander over wind research, I said, if you want to strip subsidies from a mature technology, let's start with the fossil fuel industry. So one thing about this 100% movement, if you are in a club, think about asking them to do a 100% resolution and a 3-year action plan. If you're on a community college board, the president's right over here, so I'll cast it wherever she was. Think about in your own family. Do you have a gas hot water heater to change to an electric hot water heater? Do you have an oil furnace that can be changed to a heat pump? Do you have a car that gets 20 miles per gallon, but you could get a plug-in hybrid in which you'll basically have an 8-fold increase or 8-fold reduction in the fossil fuels you use? These are the sorts of questions that can be asked at every organization. I'm wrestling with this in my own household. We've started to take these steps. Those 3 I mentioned, we've done our own house. We're trying to think of what more we should do in our kind of personal action plan. This is where I say, we must move at the grassroots level. Henry David Thoreau said, what use is a house if you don't have a tolerable planet to put it on? We don't have a planet B. We don't have an alternative. And right now, 30 years ago, we were increasing carbon pollution at 1 part per million per year. 10 years ago, 2 parts per million per year. Last 2 years, average of 3 parts per million per year. We are not yet curtailing the pollution. The rate is increasing. This should terrify all of us. Anybody not terrified? I'm terrified. And here's the thing. We are starting to see that human civilization is starting to level out on its production of carbon dioxide. Why isn't the rate of carbon dioxide pollution increase dropping? And there's 2 explanations that have been put forward. One is that the ocean is not absorbing as much carbon dioxide as it was before. And by the way, that's not all. When the ocean absorbs carbon dioxide, it becomes carbonic acid, and that's what started killing our oysters, our baby oysters in 2007, 2008. So now we have to buffer the water. That acidity of the ocean is affecting our coral reefs. That's a big deal. But in terms of that's one explanation for why we're not slowing down. The other is feedback loops. Methane bubbling up out of peat moss. Methane bubbling up out of permafrost. Methane melting permafrost. Methane bubbling up out of the ocean. So we have other feedback loops. We have the open blue ocean in the Arctic, absorbs a lot more energy from the sun than the ice does. And then because it's warmer, it melts more ice. So this just reinforces how urgently we have to act. And so thank you for being part of 350. And but on the downside, we have this big urgent challenge, and we've not yet responded fast enough. But I can tell you, in the last 2 years, China has done so much. India has done so much. Even America is doing a lot, even without the federal government, and we can do a lot more. We can own this. We can drive it forward. Let's do it. If every one of us thinks about how the change we can make, what is it Mahatma Gandhi said? Be the change you want to see in the world. Let's do that. And we'll make this planet a much better place for the generations to come. Thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you so much for coming today and being engaged in the a lot more of this type of engagement. I was shocked that during that July 4th break when we had a full week, I had, I think, 6 town halls, 7 Main Street walks, mostly in Republican parts of Oregon. I understand only 2 out of the 52 Republicans held a town hall over health care. And that means I had more town halls than the entire Republican caucus put together. We need this type of engagement. Let's make the Oregon way the national way on issue after issue after issue. Thank you so much.